My name is Aldrich Blackthorn, Baron of Ravencliff. For 6 months I had been a ghost haunting my own life. Every dawn I climbed the narrow path to the clifftop cemetery, where the sea roared like a beast in eternal torment. There, beneath a plain stone cross lashed by salt wind, lay my wife, or so the world had told me, Lady Alara Voss, taken by a sudden fever on the 3rd of April. I had watched the coffin lowered. I had thrown the first handful of cold earth upon its lid, and then I had begun the slow, savage work of turning my heart to stone. Yet, the stone would not hold. I spoke to her grave as a man speaks to an open wound. The words tore out of me, raw and unfinished, carried away by the merciless wind. Why did you never let me in, Alara? Why did you look at me with those storm-dark eyes and keep your secrets like blades beneath your tongue? I would have burned the world for you, and you left me to burn alone. The ravens in the ancient yew tree had learned to fall silent when I came. Even they feared the violence coiled inside my grief. On that gray October morning in 1347, with the sky pressing down like a leaden shroud, I stood longer than usual, my cloak whipping about me. The sea below slammed against the rocks in rhythmic fury, mirroring the rage and longing that never left my blood. Then a small, clear voice sliced through the wind like a knife. My lord. That lady isn't dead. I know where she is. I did not turn immediately. My hands clenched at my sides until the knuckles cracked. Only after 3 crashing waves did I face the speaker. She was a child of 12, barefoot, thin as a winter reed, her mud-soaked dress clinging to her like a second skin. Dark hair whipped across a sharp, defiant face. Her enormous brown eyes held no fear, only a terrible, solemn certainty. I felt something inside me crack open. A dangerous mixture of fury and desperate hope. Who are you? My voice was low, rough, the tone that had made hardened knights step back. I sold a weaver, my lord. I live in the cottage by the lower mill. She lifted her chin. I have lived on your lands all my life, and I am telling you the truth. I strode toward her, my boots crushing frost-hardened grass. She did not retreat. That alone unnerved me more than any scream would have. That is my wife's grave, I growled, stopping close enough to see the faint trembling in her thin shoulders. I buried her myself. I watched the earth swallow her. Yes, she answered steadily. The coffin was sealed. The physician came from her uncle, Lord Reginald Voss. Not yours. The name struck me like a blade between the ribs. Reginald Voss, Alara's uncle, that smiling serpent who had slithered into Ravencliff 3 days before her death and lingered like poison in wine. I had hated him on sight, though I could never name the exact shape of my loathings. I stared at the child for a long, dangerous moment. Come inside, I said at last, my voice like grinding stone. And God help you if you lie to me, girl. I have buried enough already. She picked up her worn shoes, clutched them to her chest like a shield, and followed me without hesitation. In the solar, warmed only by a brazier that did little against the damp chill, Isolde stood small and straight upon the rushes. I crossed my arms and waited, my heart hammering with a violence I had not felt since the day they told me Alara was gone. She began, without preamble. It was the night before they said she died. I was beneath the battlements, gathering herbs. Your wife stood above me on the walk. She wore her dark green cloak. She carried a pack. A man spoke to her. I could not see his face clearly, but his voice was cold as the grave. He said, "If you are not gone before dawn, your husband will know everything, and it will not be you who suffers most." My breath caught, sharp as a hook in flesh. She did not leave at once, Isolde continued, her voice dropping. After he went, she stood alone and wept as though her heart were being torn from her body. I think she was saying goodbye to you, my lord, in the only way she dared. The words landed like stones in still water. Ripples of pain spread through me, dark and endless. I was silent so long. The brazier flames seemed to roar in my ears. You waited 6 months, I whispered at last. I told the housekeeper. She threatened to cast me out. Frightened people protect the one who frightens them. Isolde's eyes met mine without flinching. Lord Voss's man comes every last Friday of the month. The housekeeper wears new gloves the next day. Something inside me, something long buried, began to howl. Over the following days, I moved like a man possessed. I tore open old letters. I sent riders into the night. In the locked drawer of Alera's abandoned chamber, I found her unfinished letter, the parchment warped with tears or seawater. Her slanted hand burned into my eyes. Aldrich, if you read this, then my plan has failed, and I must beg you to believe what will wound you most. She had known her uncle's scheme for over a year. The forged documents, the slow poison disguised as fever, the bribes to the bishop to whisper of witchcraft. She had gathered proof, including testimony from a girl Reginald had ruined and silenced. She had meant to bring it all to me, but feared the look in my eyes when I learned how long she had carried the burden alone. When Reginald discovered her, he gave her one night to disappear, or face ruin for us both. The final lines tore me open. I am not sorry for loving you. Even when my love was a storm you could not tame. Do not let him take what is ours. Forgive me, or do not, only live. I pressed the letter to my chest, and felt my heart lit open, like old stone under frost. All those mornings at her grave, I had been mourning a woman who had sacrificed herself to protect me, while I had been too proud, too cold, to make her feel safe enough to speak. The pain was exquisite. I welcomed it. I deserved it. 3 nights later, Isolde was stolen from the East Tower, when the overturned table and muddy boot prints were found. A red mist descended over my vision. I rode out before the sun rose, pistol and sword at my side, the wind screaming my name like a curse. In the tanglewood I found her shoe. The same worn pair she had clutched the morning she changed my life. I picked it up and felt something savage uncoil inside my chest. At Voss Keep, I forced my way through the old dairy wall like a man breaking his own tomb. Isolde sat bound in the corner, bruised but unbroken. You came, she said, voice steady despite everything. Always. I rasped, cutting her free. She stood on shaky legs. There is a woman in the North Tower. She has been there many months. She asked through the wall if anyone would ever come for her. I told her yes because I wanted it to be true. My soul shuddered. We found Alera. In the North Tower cell, she sat by the narrow slit of a window, pale as death. Yet when our eyes met, the look that passed between us was lightning, violent, electric, full of 6 months of hunger, rage, longing, and a love so fierce it bordered on hatred. Aldrich, she breathed. Her voice carried the same wild music that had once driven me half mad with desire and frustration. I crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into my arms. There was no gentle reunion. I crushed her against me as though I could weld our bones together. As though by sheer force I could undo every day she had suffered alone. She clung to me with equal desperation, her fingers digging into my back like claws. You left me, I growled against her hair, voice breaking. You left me to rot in my own grave while you suffered in silence. I was trying to save you. She wept, her tears hot against my neck. You were so proud, so distant. I feared if you knew the truth you would look at me with disgust. I could not bear it. We held each other like 2 drowning souls, the wind howling outside, as though the sea itself mourned with us. In that moment I understood the terrible truth of Wuthering Heights. That love and hate could be the same fire, burning until nothing remained but ash and longing. Lord Reginald met us in the hall. His mask finally shattered. The king's men arrived soon after. Justice was swift and merciless. The charges of forgery, attempted murder by poison, false declaration of death, and abduction rang through the great hall like funeral bells. When the stone cross was removed from the cliff weeks later, I stood beside Alera and Isolde, and watched it go. The emptiness left behind felt like absolution and fresh wound at once. That night, as the 3 of us stood on the battlements with the sea raging far below, Alera turned to me. The wind tore at her hair like it once tore at my soul. I should have trusted you, she whispered, and I should have been worthy of that trust, I answered. my voice rough with old pain. We were both storms, Alara. We nearly destroyed each other. She reached up and touched my face with trembling fingers. Then let us rebuild from the wreckage. Isolde watched us silently. Her sharp eyes soft for the first time. She had been the spark that reignited our dying fire, in the spring. Before the shadow of the great pestilence fell across the land, the guardianship papers were signed. Isolde Weaver became ours, not by blood, but by something fiercer, choice, suffering, and love forged in darkness. We three sat by the fire in the solar many nights afterward. The unfinished sentences still lingered between Alara and me, sharp, passionate, sometimes painful. But they grew shorter with each passing day, replaced by raw honesty and a love that no longer hid in shadows. Outside, the sea continued its eternal war with the cliffs. Inside, three broken souls slowly, fiercely, began to heal, and in the ancient yew tree, the ravens finally dared to cry again.